krijg een message. Die cannot join. Hey, Mike Pinto. Let me invite you. Let me invite you. I hope it works. Hey, man.
There we go.
I'm fine, man. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Cool. Cool.
I'm doing
So,
well.
welcome, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Thanks,
inviting
thanks.
me today. I really
Well, like I
appreciate it.
said, I have a little project to announce, or not to announce. I'm busy with a little project. Is to have contact with a lot of capoeiristas around the world, people who I've worked with, and I know, and also people I don't even know, capoeiristas I don't even know. Just through social media, you look at videos or stuff that they do. And I was like, okay, let's reach out to some people and have some conversation, and learn from different perspectives, learn from your stories, and share to the capoeira community. So I was thinking about to do this a long time, even during the pandemic, but never came to fruition. And then I was like, what if?
Sure.
I'm just gonna do it. And so sometimes you start to overthink yourself. So what if this, blah 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 blah. But then I reached out to Muito Tempo,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And then the ball started rolling. So yeah, but thank you very much for doing this, man. Even though you don't know me,
Of course.
but I think it's a nice gesture, man. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I totally know what you mean. The hardest part of doing these
Yeah.
projects is
Yes,
doing the first one and just getting
exactly.
started. So
I still have to
it's
find my
a really
way,
cool thing to do.
but this is my first time, doing live events. But it's getting
Mhm.
okay. It's getting okay. But too cool, man. But I have some questions, but just like Capoeira, just let it flow. First thing, what I most like to add about apelidos, your nickname. Uh, why desconfiado?
Mhm.
Um, and what's your opinion about your apelido as well?
So
Mm,
that's a great question. And um, through my time at Capoeira, I've had, I don't know, 5 or 6 different
yeah.
apelidos kind of get put on me at different times. And at this point, I don't really go
Okay.
by any of them. So mainly now I just
Yeah.
go by my
Yeah.
given name, by Mike, which
Okay.
what I feel the most comfortable with. But Desconfiado was given to me when I was a part of Capoeira Mandinga. It was because
Mm-hmm.
I have basically like a lazy eye. So
Yeah.
Desconfiado means suspicious.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
like
yeah. All
it's like
right.
a side eye type of thing. Um, but it's the kind of thing where like, you know, you don't really have an apelido
Mm,
until
yeah.
people see you as that, right? And it was something that most
Okay.
people just never ended up really calling me,
Oh, really?
not even my teachers. So
Okay.
it was something that
So it's
really
just
stick.
like
Yeah,
Mike. Everyone knows that's Mike. Yeah. Yes. All right. So
basically, yeah.
that's interesting because I know some companies that they had a name but they never used it. That teaches.
Mhm.
My name is Espiritu, but I had a different name before. I was called Feijão, but I think it was given because I was the
Mhm.
only black kid in the class, and it was just like Feijão, just the easy way. And in the time,
Yeah.
I was really young. I was like 14. In the time, it was sound cool. I didn't knew any Portuguese, so it sounded cool to me. But later on, I was like,
Mhm.
man. And then the teacher left the group, and then another teacher came, and I asked him, "Can I change my name in Capoeira? Is it can it be done?" He was, "Yeah, it's possible." So then he baptized me. It's more fitting than just Beijão because I was the only black kid in the class. So that's that's what the
Yeah.
thing like about your podcast. You had an item about the nicknames. where I come from, and
Mhm.
what I want to ask you is about what was your drive to start with a podcast about diving into the history, and what did
Mhm.
you learn from that?
So I've really always been interested in capoeira history for a long time. And one of my first instructors was um, someone who was really he really valued the history a lot, and he did a
Okay.
lot to kind of impress that on us. And so when I was learning capoeira, I was always looking for things to read, ways to learn more, and ask questions
Mm-hmm.
about the history. And so I developed this like big library of books and
Yeah.
notes and all that stuff, and that was great. But when I started teaching more and more, I had always been trying to figure out a way to
Mm-hmm.
transmit that knowledge to my students in a way that
Oh,
they
yeah.
could digest, especially for people who maybe don't speak Portuguese or
Mm-hmm.
are unfamiliar with Brazilian culture. So it was kind of that's where it was coming from. And then during the pandemic,
Yeah.
I ended up traveling for work a
Oh,
lot, so I had a lot of time, and that's kind of where
yeah.
that where that
Nice,
came
man.
from.
Nice. Because I stumbled upon your podcast like a guest last year. I was just searching on Capoeira podcast on
Mhm.
Spotify, and then came to Singer for Survival, and I started to notice, man, this is really, insightful and meaningful. Some stuff I already knew, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't even knew about. And I started to research myself and also incorporate in my classes myself. It was like, this is really nice. That's one of the reasons that I also reached out to you to have some conversation about that. And is there any topic that stuck with you during your research um, for a podcast? But
Hmm.
yeah,
I mean, there's so many. There's so many because going through the process made me learn a lot about so much
mhm,
more about capoeira history that I never even
yeah,
I
true,
never even
true.
thought to ask the question. I
Yeah,
think that's what comes up a lot. But I think the two things that stick out to me the most are um, Lampião and
yeah.
the history of like the northeast of Brazil, and
Oh, yeah,
Queen Jinga, and
yeah.
how some
That I
of that
didn't
history
know
from
anything
Africa
about
relates
it.
into what we
Yeah.
do Brazil. I didn't either. It was so
Mhm.
with so for both of them with Lampião, we sing songs that has Lampião in there, but we never talk about Lampião in Capoeira really, other than like
Yeah, yeah,
little verses and songs. So, um, but that's a little bit of the disconnect with
yeah.
Brazilians and non-Brazilians. So my brother's girlfriend was born in the northeast of Brazil, and she doesn't know, or she didn't know much
Mhm.
about capoeira, but knew about Lampião because it was
Yeah,
like a cultural figure. So if you're in that culture and you hear
exactly.
these
Yes.
references to Lampião, it
Yeah.
makes
For
sense.
outside,
But for us,
that's so alien to
it's just
us.
another name.
Yeah. Nice. It's
Exactly.
I had the same
Exactly.
because you know we sing a lot of Lampião in our couple of stories and our songs, also about like Saci, and we only scratch the surface
Mhm.
what they really stood for and stands for, in the Brazilian culture. And we as non-Brazilians is for us like outsiders, just we have to dive in more. What's the significance? What's all about? And I start to
Right.
do more research also about Lampião, because I want to know what I'm singing, and not because it's a
Yeah.
important figure, just throw his name, but I want to know more, why is it so important? Why he was so important? Say with Zumbi, all those kind of historical figures in Capoeira or in Brazil, we have to know little things about them. So I also say to my
Mhm.
students, try to deep dive in some history about capoeira. You know, begin with the surface and then try to go down the rabbit hole. You will never go coming out, but
Yeah.
but that's yeah, that is also a training of capoeira. That's my opinion. But that's why I like, you know, because capoeira is so rich in, you know, movements, songs, history, everything, you know. And sometimes you think you know a lot until you hear other stuff. You think, oh, never heard it before, you know. Never,
Well, for me
yeah,
too, I'll think I know a lot, and then I'll have
yeah,
a 6-year-old student ask
true.
me a question that I never even thought to ask before, and I
I
realize
had to,
that I don't know
yeah, I
anything
had the
about
same with,
this.
I also
So,
teach kids, and they love talk about history. Some love to talk about history. Oh,
yeah.
teacher, are we going to talk about history? Yes, we're going to do some history. And then one of the students asked me a really simple question, but I never thought about it. Espiritu, what does capoeira
Hmm.
mean? The word capoeira. I was like, why are you asking me this now, man? Also, the end of the class, I swear. Okay, hold that thought. I'm back next week.
Yeah.
So I did some research, you know, and my own experience, you know, and it's so vague, you know, just that question to answer so vague because what does it mean, you know? Yeah, there's so many stories, and it's like with makulele. There's so many different stories. What does makulele
Mhm.
actually mean, you know? So I just put some pieces together, and from my own view, okay, this can mean something a little bit what word for capoeira, but it's not literally, you know. So it's kind of vague because capoeira for me can be different the words than for you maybe, you know. So it's all subjective, you know. So but those kind of questions, it's really fun because it makes you think, you know, it makes you think. But how long do you play capoeira now?
Uh, it's
Cool,
been
cool. And how
14
was your
years.
upbringing, capoeira? How you okay? Why? Yeah, why capoeira? When you saw it, what happened when you saw it time?
Another great question. Uh, so I got started when I was in college. So I
Mm-hmm.
am right now I live in California, but I grew up on the East Coast of
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. by Boston. And when I was in college then, around like 2008, 2010, there was actually a lot of
Mm-hmm.
college groups that were doing really well, all the different colleges around. So my dad was into martial arts, so I had the
Yeah, yeah.
word capoeira in the back of my mind somehow. But then when I went to school, I
Mm-hmm.
stumbled on a group that was practicing.
Cool.
So I got involved with them, and that was basically it. So I got involved with the groups that were over there, and then wherever I go now, it's, how do I find the capoeiristas and how do I
Yeah, nice,
figure out how to do it
nice.
wherever I'm at?
Because you spend the most time in Manjinga, and then you left the group. Oh,
So actually, no. I spent the most time with the first group that I was in, which was
oh,
Grupo
okay.
Ondas, which
Yeah.
is this one right here. So that's in Rhode
Mm-hmm.
Island with Messi Chigri. So I moved here to California
Yeah.
6 years ago. I think a little more than 6 years ago. And so I was with Capoeira Mandinga
Oh,
for
okay. Okay.
3, 4
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
years, something like that. Uh, yeah, and then the group that
Mm-hmm.
was here left to form their own group, um, and so and now I'm training with Messi
Ah, nice,
Mascada
nice.
with his group
Cool.
in the area
Yeah,
here.
I thought I saw some videos with him. You know, thanks, Mascara. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And but you have your own group with him, or it's just like working together.
So I I'm training with him and I'm a part of his group, but I have my own school that I've been running. It's like
Oh,
we're
really?
like an hour apart, right?
Mhm.
So I have my own school in Santa Clara, it's by San Jose, that I've been running for about
Cool.
3 years, maybe a little more than 3 years. So where we do adults programs, kids programs, working on more like
Mhm.
community programs now,
Nice,
trying to get
nice.
involved there. So
And yes, and is
that's
that
been a
your
lot of fun.
passion to teach as well?
It is, and it's kind of become that. So that's not
Oh, right,
my day
really?
job. I'm an engineer. Um, so, but I've been
Yeah.
teaching on some level for a very long time, running different college groups. When I was in grad school, I was teaching, science and math stuff.
Yeah.
So it's something that I've been trying to do more and more,
Yeah.
um,
Nice,
as
nice.
much as I can,
And
really.
well, you practiced Capoeira for like 14 years. Can you remember? Of course, you can remember. How was it feel like your first batizado?
It was
Yeah.
overwhelming, overwhelming. So the first Bachazada was in 2009,
Hmm.
2009. And yeah, I remember, so it's always that kind of like that moment where you wake up and realize that there's an entire community outside of
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
the 6 people that you train with, of just like different people
Yeah.
everywhere, crazy skilled people. And it was just, I just remember being in a
Yeah.
gym with like 50 people, and just being like, what did I get myself
Yeah.
involved with? Where am I? But I think the
Exactly.
it's hard to like
Exactly.
forget that feeling like the first time you see
Yeah.
the
I the
giant
same.
community and everything coming together.
Not the batizado, but just the community, how big it is. Because you think it's like
Yeah.
you think you're the only one with your group. And then there's another community, other groups were doing things differently, and like you said, skilled capoeiristas. I remember for me it was like when I traveled for the first time. I visited other groups. They invited me for the first time for a Tweede Batizado. I was like, I don't know why they asked me to come here, man, because I see couples doing crazy stuff. And it was for me overwhelming as well. And I was so new into my first teacher's corda. And the first time going to an event was not mine from my own school. And for me, it was also really overwhelming. And I was like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Sometimes even a little bit
Mhm.
intimidated and scared to play because I don't know these people. I know
Yeah.
maybe three or four, and that's about it. It was all strangers to me. But if you travel more, you start to get more connection. You start line of friends. But the first time was really tough. It was really tough. But I think it's the same as life. If you do something for the first time, something new, it can be overwhelming. But we have to do it because that's the way we learn. Where we learn. So, but yeah, cool. Um, how do you train for yourself as well? Yeah, just on
Yeah,
your
like
own.
on
And
my
how do you
own.
find the drive
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get on and just train?
So it's been kind of two things because I think
Mhm.
that's a struggle for
Yeah,
everyone once they teach more,
yeah,
is finding the
yeah,
time and finding the energy to do it. For me, it's been
yeah,
one, having a really good plan. Um, so, it's really sitting down and say, okay, if I'm going to practice by
yeah,
myself, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Because it's like it's really tough when you go there like, yes, I want to train. I set aside the time for train. I show up
Yeah,
to train, and
exactly.
what am I going to do? Uh, so there's that, and then there's kind of using uh, what's the word? Basically using like events that you're going to or something like
Ah,
that as kind of like markers, even
mhm.
if even if it doesn't really matter. So like for example, next week I'm going up to
Yeah,
Portland for an event, up to Eugene rather for an event. And so for me in my training, like okay, I want to focus my personal training on this type of thing so
hmm,
I can be ready for this event. Even if
no,
even if I don't have to
yeah,
go and perform at an
yeah,
event. It's just like for me in my head. That way I know like in each session, like, okay, I'm practicing these exact things, I'm practicing these exact
nice,
things for this.
cool. So you use basically
So
like
that's helped me a lot.
events templates to work with. Yeah, nice, nice. And do you do
Exactly.
it the same with
Exactly.
for your teaching methods? Like, okay, maybe you don't have any um, ideas to teach. So are you doing the same? You use the same methods or something different? Yeah.
It's it's similar. So my teaching actually has changed a
Hmm.
lot over the past couple years because I've been interacting with people
Yeah.
like Messi Cueca,
Nice.
like Messi Ferradura, who have really
Yeah.
just amazing teaching methods and structures. They do really incredible work. So I now think of it as I think of it at a couple different
Hmm.
levels. I think of it on the year level,
Okay.
the month level, and the week level. So um, my goal for my students is to have people who can handle themselves in
Yes.
many different kinds of rodas. So students like if they show up to an Angola roda, they're not going to be Angoleiros, but they're going to have an understanding of what to expect, and they're going
Yes.
to be able to make it work there, right? So if I want to do that, then we need to have some amount of time we're
Hmm.
training
Yeah.
each styles, right? So I break up the year into, okay, now these
Yeah.
months we're going to do Angola, these months we're going to do Regional, these
Yeah.
months we're going to do Capoeira, that kind of thing. And then at the beginning of each month,
Yeah.
it's easy for me to say, okay, we're working on this style. By the end of this block, I want them to know this, so
Nice.
let's sprinkle this throughout the month,
Yeah. Exactly.
and it makes it more manageable.
Yeah.
You still have to improvise a lot because
Yep.
you never know who's going to show up or
Yep.
something doesn't work or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least there's like
I have
the
the
overall
same. I have
structure
the
and
same.
I got it
I
away.
work with like templates or teams. Right now we're going to do more like Angola stuff. And like last
Mhm.
month we did a lot of takedowns, grapplings. Like real regional stuff. And now more to the ground. More
Yeah.
the flow, more up
Mhm.
close. So they, like you said, if they're gonna play with the Angolero one time, but some new beginners, they know how to handle themselves and they know, oh, this is different, something different. Let's transform and go with the flow. Instead of just only training one thing.
Mhm.
So I love
Right.
to prepare my students. Everything what I know, I want to teach them as well. And so they are prepared for if they're going to an Honda. Oh, they can play fast, they can play hard, they can play a little bit Angola, they can sing this particular song, they can handle the instruments. It's like preparing them to go outside, basically. Basically, and I always encourage people go outside. Travel, go visit other groups or events because you will learn a lot. If you just stay at home all the time, you start to feel a little bit too comfortable and in your comfort zone, like everyone does.
Mhm.
You go outside, you will get your rasteira, you get your cabeçada, etc. But you know how to handle it later on. That's really important. But also not only for the students, but also for the teachers as well, because I see when we go to events and there's a lot of other teachers there, it's also a time for us to train, to play with each other, to level up a little bit. So I also take opportunities to go visit other groups and train, or play a lot of games with my students, Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, but I have to go. So yeah, yeah.
That's
Do you
part
have
of
the
it.
same? So if
Yeah.
you sometimes you want to push yourself and it's like a birthday heart, but it's not if your birthday, so you play with every students and wear yourself out. Yeah. We need that. We need that,
Absolutely,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, especially as teachers, we need that too, because kind of what you're saying of going outside and meeting other people and playing is so important for,
Yeah.
it's important for everybody, but especially for teachers because, so much of our energy is
Yeah.
focused on the teaching rather
Yeah.
than the like growing ourselves. And, it's very easy to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
plateau ourselves because we're like, oh, we're just
Hmm.
focusing on the teaching, so we're just doing this. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's important for both, I think. And also, I love going to events too, and I
Nice.
take every
Nice.
workshop whenever I'm at an event, even workshops that
Hmm.
maybe like I'm not super interested in, but I'm always watching
Oh
how
yeah.
does the teacher
Yeah.
run their
Yeah.
class, how do they run this workshop, because you can see it on a kind of a
Nice.
different
Nice.
level and learn from those techniques too.
Is there a thing in capoeira like um not political wise, but it's more, styles or whatsoever that you're not that fond of? It's some student of mine doesn't like to play hard. I know one
Mhm.
couple of they he doesn't like doing makulele. Um, so if is there a thing in couple that you uh, rather not, but I'm gonna do it anyway?
Hmm. That's hard. I think the only thing that
Hmm.
I don't like right now, and I don't think that this is really
Hmm.
happening mainly in like the mainstream of capoeira, but there's some
Hmm.
like I'm fine
Yeah.
with hard games. I like hard games, but sometimes people bring
Ah,
in a
yeah,
little bit
yeah,
of Brazilian
yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu into those hard games.
No.
That I don't like.
Hmm.
If it happens, whatever. But I try to at least
Yeah.
discourage my students from from that.
Yes. Nice. All right. Yeah, it's the same. It's more. It also depends on the context. And if they're just going to the holiday just to
Sure,
brawl
sure.
and just to do other stuff, yeah, that's not for me. It's not in the context of the game what it's supposed to be. And even though hard games, yes, we can play hard, and I like hard games as well, but it has to be in context, not to jump into the hard
Yeah,
like kamikaze style and just kicking people around. No, that's everybody can do that. You have to be aware, be more proficient. Okay, calculate, and when you're gonna play hard, because if you just jump in hard and start kicking people, man, people will just kill your ass. Just yeah, be burnt. I learned my lesson. I
yeah,
learned
yeah,
I learned
yeah.
my lesson. And I tell always I tell the stories to my students, because I had there was a time that I really loved to test myself, but also test the person who I'm playing with. And there was a moment that I was playing with a
Hmm.
mastery, and I know I knew he liked to play hard, but with respect, But I was like, I was playing so irritating, man. I was like an irritating mosquito all the time in his face, you know. But the crowd, the people was loving it, And but until one moment, it was like, man, I had enough of you, man. I was like instant in a yeah in a space, And the game in the time wasn't called for that. But I was still young. I was just happy. I was just trying to, I don't know, please the audience and to have entertaining
Yeah.
game without even knowing the context of the game, And then he was like, F you, so he pulled the shirt, my camisa over my head and gave me one big banda, man. Like that. And I was like, what? Yeah. That But that's
Wow.
it's on YouTube, by the way. I guess. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
And I'm
really?
not shy about it because that happens, So I tell my students, sometimes tell my students about it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can look it up. But it's more to prepare yourself. You have to be aware what you're doing. And if you're not
Yeah.
aware what you're doing, and maybe the kick of what you're doing right now for you is just no big deal, but for other person can be like, what are you doing, man? That's not game we're playing. And then it sets on your
Mhm.
place. We have something we have to learn the hard way. Have you have any
Yeah.
occasions like that you were just too enthusiastic and or not with your mind in the game, and some teacher has to like, Mike, and I love you, guy, but no, man, I have to do a benzo right now.
Yeah. I mean, uh, I've been kicked plenty of times, plenty of times, plenty of times. But I think so.
Mm,
I've more had the opposite problem, where my my struggle
yeah.
even now has been to kind of like uh,
Ah, yeah,
occupy
yeah.
my space. You know what I mean? So like all when I was younger, coming up in
Mm,
Capoeira, it was always like holding or not what's the word?
yeah, yeah.
Being timid, I guess, right? Being timid in the game. Not really like go
Exactly.
putting everything out because you don't know what's going to happen. You're trying not to like
True.
offend the other person and that kind of stuff. So that
Hmm.
has more been kind of my process
All right.
that I've
Nice.
been going through.
Nice.
So just personality. It's like
Yeah. Yes.
Capoeira is all like personality kind of stuff like that. Because it's funny what you're saying now.
Ah, yeah.
I can see in my kids
Yeah.
just in the way they interact with each other. Kids come in, they got lots of energy. Like the kid that's 7 years
Yeah.
old thinks he's got like these really funny jokes and is gonna be bugging the other
Yep.
kids with them until one of them freaks out. So. Uh, it's the same
Exactly.
exact thing, and they learn from that. They
Yeah.
learn, okay, this is how I have to interact,
And
and so
that's the
on.
thing. If you just learn
Yeah,
from it, and handle it another time, that's okay. That I've been kicked many times. I remember when I started capoeira, I was the youngest, and I just came from other martial arts. I did gymnastics. I love to do crazy stuff, jump over fences and doing, you know. My mom was like, "Man, just go outside." I was always imitating like action stars, like of course Bruce Lee's, Jackie Chan, all them. And then, well, okay, I capoeira. So for me, capoeira was like cool. I can do all those crazy stuff. I can do the flips, I can do the crazy kicks, but I never played. I never actually played capoeira. It was a really big distance for me and my opponent. I was playing here, doing my stuff, and the other person was here. It was no connection. And yeah, I was young, and just try to doing fancy movements. And then I get the bandas, rasteiras every damn time. I was aggravated and angry. And the teacher was like, yeah, but you're not playing capoeira. You have to open, your armada is too high, man, you're not stable enough. And I only have to do like this and you fall. I was like that. And I was like, okay, okay, so I have to change my game. But when you get older, when you get more experience, you play with other couples, then you will form more your style as well. And even now, if I see
Mhm.
old footage of me like 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I play differently. There's still some
Yeah.
fingerprints of me back from that, but I play differently right now. I'm getting older. Some movements doesn't get as flexible enough as like so I have to change some stuff up. But I think you keep evolving, in a different kind of way. If also with injuries, I've like a hip injury. I've arthritis, so I cannot do any high kicks. I cannot do a lot of jumps anymore. So I have to you know, figure things out how to play capoeira, you know, and listen to my body as well, you know. Um, do you have any
Mm.
injuries or whatsoever that you have to, you know, relax your?
So, so I mean, I'm lucky right now. So about 10 years
Mm,
ago, I had to have knee surgery from capoeira, and that took me a very long
mm,
time to recover from. And so,
yeah,
like you, I mean, my game is changing all the time because, getting older,
yeah,
understanding is changing. Even what
yeah,
I
oh,
like
yeah,
changes all the time. Um, but what I've changed more than anything else since
yeah,
that injury is how I prepare myself for capoeira. So
mm-hmm,
I'm healthy now.
nice,
I haven't had any major injuries in a while, but it's
yeah,
constant work to
yeah,
make sure that
yeah.
that stays
That's
that
really
way.
important, you know. It's really important. So my question, another question, in upbringing in capoeira, who was your biggest influence in capoeira besides your own teacher, like a master or other teacher? Who was your influence that you look up to? Like, man, he or she is really something else.
Hmm. So
Hmm.
I guess there's a couple. Um, so I mean, first was of
Yeah.
course, the older students that were around. So there was one guy that was around. He was like teaching a bit that it was always like, from like a martial point of view. It was like I
Hmm.
really want to play like this person. I'm always watching them, always trying to figure out what they're doing. But I also, so when I got started, it was early YouTube days, so there wasn't nearly as much capoeira online as there is now. But I remember there was, I don't know if maybe you've seen this one too. There was this
Yeah.
old like VHS of
Yes.
Mestre
Yes.
Kibi. Mestre
Yeah.
Kibi's 30 movimentos. So I had that on a flash drive, and me and
Nice.
my
Nice.
training partners would be
That's
passing that one
right.
around.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was. Um, I always think back on that one, especially now that there's so much. You
That's
know, now it's
yeah.
hard to count the amount of people that
Yeah.
inspire me and people that I'm like watching what they do and trying to pick this one thing out of
It's
what they do. But
a
yeah,
lot, man. It's a lot. I came from a time that's, you
yeah,
know, was VHS with capoeira, you know, VHS, you know, and now it's
yep,
like one click, social media, and see all the reels, people's stuff, you know. That's a
yep,
different time we're living in right now. You know? It's so real sometimes, you know. Even old masters or masters that you love, inspired, are into this kind of stuff. Back, I remember back in the day
yep,
when you went to an event and there was a master was or teacher, giving a workshop. Something was even uh, you could not film it. They didn't want to film it. You know, you have to ask for permission. So, oh, pode gravar? Can I film it? So sometimes, no problem. Something, no, don't film. But nowadays, it's just like basically people can learn capoeira from the internet. You know, it's so surreal. You know, so we
yeah,
live so different time that now it's so exposed. We can just share it. You know, and if I think back, remember I was there with a camcorder and Master Jalon was doing a workshop. It was all cool, man. I was wanted to film. It was like, no, no, pode gravar now. So, oh, sorry, man. You know, yeah, I screwed up, messed up, man. But now it's so normal. It's so, you
yeah.
know. So
I know.
it's so it's so nice that capoeira can change, evolve so quickly as well. You know, I think it has to as well. You know, I think it has to because we are
Yeah,
evolving, we are changing, and capoeira it's also keeps evolving. People throwing different stuff in capoeira. Other people pick it up, make it their own, spread it again. You know, and here and there, it's capoeira keeps changing. That's what I love about it, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's gonna make I think it's been part of what's been making at least I've been feeling the Capoeira community has been getting a lot more cooperative and collaborative
Yeah.
over the past like 5 to 10 years. And I have to feel like this is part of it because I mean when I was starting Capoeira, exact kind of what you're saying, people didn't want,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the on the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
groups were very competitive with each other.
No,
And people didn't
no.
want their games filmed and up on the internet because they didn't want
Exactly.
people to be able to
Exactly.
learn what they
They
were
don't.
doing.
No.
And now nobody does things like that. But you know,
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like keeping
It's
things really
so
tight.
I didn't even notice the switch. It's just like it was just there, you know. Yeah. And now we're
It's
doing
just here
this, you know,
now.
exchanging
Yeah.
stuff, you know. It's so something so surreal how quickly things goes, you know. Yeah, capoeira in capoeira. Do you
Yep.
have a favorite instrument to play in capoeira, or do you like all of them?
Ah, man, that's hard. Um, I've really been digging into Atabaki playing a
Mhm.
lot more lately. Um, I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it. It always shifts, right? So like these couple of years, I'm
yeah,
like, oh, all about beat and bow. These couple of years, I'm all about pandeiro. Right now, I'm
yeah,
in like the Atabaki phase,
yeah.
so we'll see where that takes. Me. But
Oh,
I do
nice,
love a good
nice,
go
nice.
also.
What was your first instrument that you learned to play? You remember?
Let's see. I think it might have been beat and bow because when we were in the college group, we didn't have any hatabakis, but we had a couple
Okay.
like really old leftover beat and bows
Oh,
for a couple of
nice,
years. I think
nice.
that was actually the
Yeah,
first
for me
one.
as well. The first one was the berimbau. I remember when I walked into the school and I saw the teacher I've never seen before. You know, bow with one string and a coconut on it. Like, what the
Mhm.
hell's that? And then he's made the sounds like, oh, immediately I fell in love. I said, I want this. Not
Yeah.
even I want to do capoeira now. I want that instrument. You know? I want that instrument. So yeah, the berimbau was also my first instrument to own and also to practice on. You know, and later on at the back, the latter instrument was the pandeiro. I didn't. It wasn't my interest. It was so
Mm.
weird because I could play the berimbau, I could go, heko heko. I couldn't figure out the pandeiro. I couldn't figure that one out. It was like, okay, something they put it the pandeiro in my hand. I was like, I couldn't hold the beat. And at the back was easy for me, but the
Hmm.
pandeiro was so strange to me. And then some, and then a guy from
Interesting.
he just came from Brazil. He traveled in Brazil, you know, and he came to the class and he took the pandeiro. He just played the samba like tak, 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 and he was such a dick about it. And then I was like, okay, how am I gonna do? Now I'm gonna learn the pandeiro, man.
That's awesome.
Then I started to be more interested in the pandeiro. But that was the yeah the latest instrument that I learned to play, you know. But I think it also depends where your interest lie that moment, you know, where
Yeah.
your heart goes, so your feeling goes. So for me, it was the beating bow. It was like, yeah, really rocking that, you know, the beating bow. And then I finally had my own beating bow and didn't know how to string it, you know. So that's another issue with other
Yep.
capoeiristas. Yes, I have a beating bow. Okay, help me string it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
man, good times, man.
Yeah, Pandero is. I think people underestimate how
Yes.
hard Pandero is to play really well. I think that's why, like, I felt the same, and I was kind of like, you know, almost bored with
Yeah,
Pandero in the very beginning because I was like, oh,
exactly. I had the
this
same.
is a less interesting Atabaki. But then to
Yeah,
see someone really play samba and like the different types of sambas that they can play,
yeah.
um, you can do a lot of cool
a
stuff, but it
lot
takes
of
a
time, you
lot of
know.
practice to.
And finally, I learned some tricks, you know, that you do with when they're just spinning or just like do like this or with the
Yep.
elbow. I was like, yes, finally, you know. Yeah, but it's if you think about it, it's kind of funny, you know. And but yeah, I in overall like you, it really depends where I am at the time. Sometimes it's just all about one particular instrument, like you say, you know, this month I only focus on the beating bow or just the attabag whatsoever. It's all about the moments as well, you know. Do you like do you
Yeah.
do you lead the harder all the time, or do you have students that can lead the harder as well? Oh,
No, I have my students lead as well. I'm trying as much as so most of my students are very new. I think the ones with the most
yeah,
experience probably have like a year and
yeah,
a half, maybe something like that. But um, I'm really trying to get them
hmm,
to take leadership
yeah.
more early. One,
Correct.
because it can't just be me all the time, um, but also because, I think it helps for students to feel
Yeah,
like real ownership. Like they deserve to like be in the front. They know their stuff. They can handle what they're doing, so that um, I think it makes them less scared and less timid when they go and play because they see themselves and other people that come as more of like equal footing, not like they're
yeah.
the new students way down
Hmm.
here and everyone else is just kind
That
of
makes
area
sense.
for
That
them.
makes sense. It's really important. Also, really early on, you know, to give them instrument, try to lead, you know, make mistakes. Otherwise, if you wait too long, it you will build the wall really hard to overcome it, you
Yep.
know. It's a really nice approach that you do. I like it as well. Just be early on, try to lead the harder because I like to play as well. Just in the harder, I want to play, you know. I don't want to see
Yeah, exactly.
the same old faces in the battery all the time, you know. I want just go play. I want to play as well.
Yeah.
And I want to see some new faces in the battery, you know. And I do some when we do a real hard. Okay, I pick the people out that can play, just to hold steady. But we do just like practice harder, you know.
Mm.
Okay, yo, grab the beating bow, but grab at the bar, just try it out.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you go out off beat, try it again, you know. And I think that's a good way to introduce them to into the batteria, but also to try to lead a little bit, you know, and singing as well. Singing is with singing, I understand that some people are hesitant with singing because it's something
Mm.
apart than just playing instruments. Because some people are scared to sing, and I understand that. But even then, I was like try to guide them, you know, sing together and or try to sing in the head first and stick with the basic songs, like the easy stuff, you know. Don't come with loud
Yep.
hands or something, but just stick to the basic songs, the CC, Parane, whatsoever, and then later on you will start to develop more, you know.
Yep. But
Yeah,
they need that
little
opportunity to
push.
try and mess up and all of that.
Yeah,
Understand
yeah.
that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Did you sing immediately when you had your beating bow, or, or was it like okay, I had more time to develop my singing?
So
Hmm.
I had a little bit of an easier time,
Ah,
because I've been doing
that's easy
music for like my
then.
whole life. So yeah, so I
Hmm.
felt more comfortable doing that kind of thing. Um, for me, what for
Ah,
me it
yeah,
was
yeah,
more the leadership part that took more work, right? The feeling like you're going to be like being in charge of what
yeah.
you're doing is okay for you to do was the bigger gap.
Oh,
But yeah, music was always easier. But
oh,
that's kind of been my problem actually, is because I've been doing music my whole life, I have a
yeah,
really intuitive understanding of music. which makes it sometimes difficult for me to communicate to
Yeah.
somebody what it actually is what I'm doing, you know? So that's why I've been uh, really fascinated by some of the
Hmm.
music work that, say, Messi Fahadoud has been doing, because um, it's taking complex, like, musical theory concepts and shaving them down to, like, okay, what does someone who's doing capoeira actually need to know?
Hmm.
What will actually
Yeah.
make their life easier to do their music in a way that's like I can teach them in
Yes.
10 seconds. So that's been really helpful
Hmm.
for me to, like, reinterpret what I already know, like, in my body about music into something that I can say, okay,
Yeah.
do this to a student and now
That
they'll
makes
understand.
sense. Makes sense. For me, music was also kind of easier to do, but I didn't like the singing part. Me was I love to play the instruments. I
Mm.
love to play capoeira, but singing for me was no. I didn't love to sing, And I told this story many times to my students as well, but I never sang until the teacher stopped the Hoda or the class and I had to sing for everyone, just like no instrument, nothing, just hey, sing like this song and this song, and I was like, no, man, why you doing this to me, man? No, you're doing it to yourself. Kata, you have to sing. So shit. Then I learned my lesson again, you know. Yeah,
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 sometimes you really need
yes.
that push
And
like
now I'm
that
like
really
all
firm
about singing,
push
man. I
to
love to sing.
get.
All about
Yeah.
singing. Yeah, man. Yo, last question. I know you're really busy, and the pandemic is a little bit in our rear view. Have you any plans which continue with your podcast?
Yes, so I am
Oh, cool.
I am still working on it now. So
Hmm.
what I'm trying to do at this point is to uh, I'm essentially reworking how my
Yeah.
workflow works on the podcast, so that I can make it work with my
Ah,
current,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, life realities now. Um, so I have a
Cool.
couple episodes that are in the works right now. Um, but it's always been the kind of thing where
True.
I've never been in a rush to get them. So I would rather, you know, only put out 2 or 3
Yeah,
episodes a year
that really matters.
and be happy
Yeah.
with them. Don't worry about them more. Exactly, exactly.
Cool.
But there are more in the
Cool.
works now, and
Cool.
I'm
Nice.
hoping in the
Looking
next couple
forward to it,
months
man.
we'll be able to
Yeah.
drop one. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I really appreciate this that you're starting now, because, you know, you mentioned, you know,
Yeah.
the capoeira world has changed a lot, especially with social media and the internet. But personally, I really think that um, we are not we are not taking advantage of the technological tools that we have as much as we should, and as much as other arts
Yeah.
and other sports are doing. So I think there's a lot of space for us to really
Mhm.
do new and
Yeah.
cool things, and for people to contribute. Because even with podcasting, there's, I don't know,
Yeah.
3 maybe active capoeira podcasts, and
Mhm.
they're all, you know, they're doing great work too. But there's no reason why we couldn't have another. You could easily have another
Yeah.
dozen people start capoeira podcasts,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
still have tons to
Exactly.
talk about
Yeah,
for
that's
years.
why I also want to do this.
So
This is not, yeah, well, it's not like a podcast thing, but it's more like, okay, let's interact with people, and step also for me, step out of my
yeah.
comfort zone and try to use social media in a way that I not used to do. And like I said in the beginning, okay, let's reach out to some capoeiristas, try if they would try to willing to do it this with me. And again, I'm really honored that
Mhm.
that you want to sit down with me virtually and just to talk about capoeira. Um, it really means a lot to me because this is my third episode, so to speak, and many more to come. But yeah, thank you very much,
Mhm.
man. Thanks.
And no problem. I really appreciate being a
Cool,
part of
man.
it. It's been a lot
Likewise,
of fun talking with
likewise.
you.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. All the best luck. And yeah, I will see your videos, your flips, your trainings. I will see. I saw the feels like so man. I saw you spinning in the air like that. I was like, man, back in the days, I could do that as well, but now my hips like fucked up. I cannot do this shit.
Yeah.
I'm too old for this shit, man. But it's nice, man. It's
Yeah.
nice to see that you're so active, man. It's also nice to see that you have a great support around you, Mascara and Ferradura, all great companies around you. Just don't stop. Just continue with your work, man, and do your thing, man. Nice.
Well,
You're welcome.
thank you so much. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate that.
Hey, thank you. We're gonna keep in touch one way or another, and maybe we can do this sometimes in the future. And for now, all the best, man.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. You
See you,
too.
man. Bye.
All right. Take care. Talk to you soon.